Dad was the first 20 years. Okay, so.
There you go.
Right. Okay, and I'd just like to say thank you everyone for coming and turning up on the event today. I've got a bit of food here. So I'm going to put that on the wall. But just before we do, I've got Dave Manford who's going to say a little bit about the New River, who owns the pub at the moment. And he's just going to like speak to you about what's going on at the moment. Just 5 minutes at a time.
Right, thank you. Can everybody hear me okay? Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Right, okay, my name's Dave Manford. I'm part of an organisation called the Pubs Advisory Service. First of all, Carol's invited me here today. I was going to come anyway, but she's invited me to speak. I'm not going to go on for too long. I'll try and keep it as brief as possible. But I must admit, I never thought I'd speak following on from the esteemed Roger Frotz. Absolutely fantastic to be on the same sort of platform as himself. I'm one of the guys who's been campaigning for the last 10 years for reform of this industry. I run a pub in the Peak District. Very busy pub, very successful pub. It's a free of tie pub. Can't take a lot of credit for its success. Your very attractive blonde lady over there takes most of the credit for that. It's my wife, because I'm never there, because I spend most of my time bombing around the country helping tenants, many of them, most of them tied tenants, fighting against pub companies. Carol's asked me to come along. I don't want to put a dampener on things. It's really important I don't do that. But I wanted to give you a flavour of what Carol's up against, because it's very easy to talk about a company without knowing the background to them. And I know a great deal about New River Retail, because I've been working against them, representing tenants for some time. I put together a document which I'll just put down and lost actually. Thank you. Thank you very much. I've got a couple of copies of this. If anybody wants it, have a look at it, they're welcome to. I'm not going to go through it all. I'm not going to go through it all, I can show it because it would take me absolutely ages. But I'm going to touch on a little bit of it because some of it's really, really interesting. When New River Retail, who have never run pubs or owned pubs, or had anything to do with pubs, when they bought all of the Marston's pubs in 2013, many of those pubs that they bought had tenants in them already, okay? Now, the first thing New River Retail did was to supply those tenants with a letter, and I want to read it to you. And it's the only part of this document I'm going to read, okay? But I'll read it to you because it's good. And if I struggle a bit, it's because my contacts are a little bit blurry. This is a letter that went out to the Marston's tenants who were in the New River Retail operations that they bought. In consideration of our obligations contained in this letter, you agree that during the period commencing and including on the date of this letter and expiring 18 months after, 1. You will work with us, cooperate with us and give us all the help we reasonably require to obtain detailed planning permission for the construction creation of a convenience store in an area acceptable to us in our absolute discretion, and that you will do all we ask of you in accordance with this letter in order to obtain planning permission as quickly and as reasonably as possible after being asked. You will not do anything which may prejudice or obstruct the submission or progress of any planning application we submit or any planning appeal we may make. You will keep confidential any covenants on the title. You will not look to or try to enforce any covenant or matter on the title of the property or encourage everyone else to do so. You will not tell anyone about this letter. You comply with your obligations. This exists. I have a copy. This is it, all right? If you comply with your obligations and agreements in this letter, and we are granted planning permission, and you are still the tenant under the lease, then on the date being 6 weeks and 10 working days following the date of issue of planning permission, provided that on the date there has been not been any challenge to the planning permission, we will pay to you the sum of, and then there's a little line at the bottom which people can fill in, all right? We know of people who are offered up to £10,000 to sign those letters. I've got an email which was sent to me by mistake by somebody from New River, which is very entertaining, and I'm hoping you'll find it entertaining as well. Okay, considering why the reasons we're here today. The email came from the operations director and involves the weekly, monthly report on VNet, which is brew lines. Anybody know what brew lines is? Yeah? Okay, so I don't need to explain that. So this has gone out to all of the area managers within the company of New River Retail, and what it says is, please find your in-house record of what is going on with each of the operations that you should be reviewing as part of your monthly audits. Some of the information you will find very interesting. Training needs or tenant change. Question mark. Training needs or tenant change. And what had gone out is a spreadsheet which details all of the information that has gone through the Brewline system. Okay. Now, because this was sent to me by accident, so I can't reveal all the information, but I did pull off Carol's, and Carol's told me I can provide it to you lot. This is information, according to Carol, that she dispensed 693 pints in 1 month, which was served unclean. Okay? So what this system is telling the guy at New River Retail is that Carol is serving 50% of her beer unclean circumstances. She's not cleaning the lines. Okay? That's what basically this information says. Now Carol's only halfway down that list. But I'm giving this to you as just a demonstration of the company that Carol's dealing with on a day-to-day basis. Okay? I've got a case history, which again I'm not going to go through. I've spent the last 3 months of my life dealing with this one, and I don't particularly want to relive it in too much detail. But basically it's a very simple case. It's a story of a pub in Cornwall called the Cornish Chuffs, which was sold at the same time as Carol's pub. It was sold as part of the Punch Tavern sale in 2015. In 2016, 2 young girls with 4 children went to the area manager and said, "We'd like to run a pub, I believe you're advertising." And they said, "Yeah, coming in." And they took on this pub called the Cornish Chuffs. They were offered a 5-year deal, originally on a tenancy at will. If you don't know what a tenancy at will, it's a short-term agreement, doesn't last very long, can be terminated on both parties with very short notice. They took it on a TAW with a promise of a 5-year agreement and a 5-year investment. Okay? When they had to spend £350 on a business plan, it was their own money, and that business plan was based on doing food and drink within this pub, and it was based on a 5-year deal. Paid for it themselves, signed off by New River Retail. Okay? When they got into the pub, they realised that the gas had been condemned. There was no gas in the kitchen. They couldn't serve food. Completely impossible to serve food. New River Retail were aware of this. They realised very quickly that the electrical certification it had none. The electrics were faulty. In fact, there were 4 grade 1 faults, which are dangerous, immediate danger. They realised that the gas boiler should have been condemned, and in fact 3 months later was condemned. There was no fire alarm. The windows fell out. Okay? This is a real story. It's very well researched. It's all the information is here in this little pack of information. When they started to complain to New River Retail, they were given immediate notice. And next Wednesday they're going to be evicted and probably face around about £10,000 worth of costs to be thrown out of that pub. This is the company that Carol Ross is dealing with. And the reason I'm coming along today and possibly putting a bit of a dampener on this, which again I don't want to do, is because I genuinely don't believe this will be, certainly next year, hopefully, 2 years' time, very unlikely. Right, this is a company who cares absolutely nothing about you, your pub, Carol, the history of it, nothing at all. It's a property company. That's all it is. That's all it advertises itself as being. Now, along with a few colleagues who have come along today and people who know me, I must admit I'm very tired of doing this because I do it for nothing. I run around the country helping people, and I find it very frustrating when I'm speaking to politicians and giving evidence to Business and Industry Select Committee inquiries, which I've done over the last 10 years, because the government aren't that interested. Not really very interested, certainly our government right now. And it's only people like yourselves who are going to have the influence to make this sort of activity and these sort of companies actually do something. And to do that, you have to be very loud. You have to do what I do. You have to shout. You have to get your name in the press all the time. You have to shout and scream and make lots and lots of noise. So, really what I've come along today to do, as well as sample some fantastic beer, is just basically to say to you, it's very much up to you. This is your pub, okay? Carol's been looking after it for a long, long time, but it's a community pub. That's what we say to our customers. We may own it, but it's theirs really, because that's what makes a successful pub. You never forget that as a landlord, okay? It's yours. It's been around a lot longer than we have, and it will hopefully be around a lot longer in the future. But this won't if people don't fight for it, and it's very much up to you to do that. The press, local MPs, anybody you can think of to make as much noise as possible about this sort of company, okay? Thank you very much.
Can I ask you something?
You certainly can.